Chapter 35 Old Faithful. The next day was probably one of the best and surely the worst in Gramps and Gramps' lives. The whispers woke me early. It was the sixth day, and the next day was my mother's birthday. We had to get out of Wyoming and through Montana. Gramps was already up. Hut Grandma was lying there on the bed, staring at the ceiling. "Did you ever go to sleep?" I asked. "No," she said. "I didn't feel like sleeping. I can sleep later. Let's get a move on." She climbed out of bed. "Let's go see that old faithful. I've waited my entire life to see that old faithful." We had breakfast in the main lodge and then drove on into Yellowstone Park, following the signs to Old Faithful. "You know," Gramps teased, "there are about 10,000 other geysers here. Why don't we go see any old one?" "I'm going to see Old Faithful," Gramps said. "You've sure got your heart set on that, don't you? You stubborn gooseberry." "I sure do," Graham said. We parked the car and walked up a low hill. I was afraid Graham was going to be disappointed because it didn't look like much at first. There was a rope fence around a mound on the side of the hill. People were gathered around the fence, but it was early and we were able to get right up to the rope. The ground was scrabbly dirt, and in the center of the rope enclosure, about 20 feet away, was a hole. "Heck," Graham said. "Can't we get any closer than this?" Gramps and I walked over to read a sign about Old Faithful. A park ranger rushed past us yelling, "Ma'am, ma'am!" He ran toward the rope fence. "Gall dang," Gramps said. Graham was crawling under the rope. The ranger stopped her. "Ma'am, there's a reason for that rope," he said. Graham brushed off her dress. "I just wanted a better look." "Don't worry," the ranger said. "You'll get a good look. Please stay behind the rope." The sign said that Old Faithful was due to erupt in 15 minutes. More and more people gathered around the rope. There were people of all ages, little babies crying, grannies sitting on folding stools, teenagers plugged into radio headsets, couples smooching. There were people speaking languages other than English. Next to us was a tour group of Italians. Across the way was a group of Germans. There were black skins and white skins. Graham was tapping her fingers together, getting more and more excited. "Is it time?" she kept saying. "Is it almost time?" The crowd became quiet a few minutes before Old Faithful was due to go off. Everyone stared at the hole. Everyone was listening. "Is it time?" Graham said. There was a faint noise and a little spit shot out of the hole. The man next to me said, "Ah, is that all?" Another noise, this time a little louder, a grating and crunching sound like a walking on gravel. Two fitful spits. "Ah," the man said. Then it was like the radiator boiling over or the tea kettle blowing its top. Old Faithful hissed and steamed. A sudden spout of water shot out, maybe 3 feet high. "Ah," the man said. "Is that all?" More steam, boiling and hissing, and a huge jing bang spring of water surged out, climbing and climbing, and then more and more, until it looked like a whole river of water was shooting straight up into the air. "It looks like an upside downy down waterfall," Graham said. All while there was a walloping hissing, I could have sworn the ground rumbled and trembled underneath us. The warm mist blew toward us. People started backing away. All except Graham. She stood there, grinning, tilting her face up in the mist, and staring at the fountain of water. "Oh," she said. "Oh, huzza, huzza," she shouted into the air and noise. She practically sang it out. Gramps was watching Old Faithful. He was watching Graham. He put his arms around her and hugged her. "You'll like this old geyser. You like this old geyser, don't you?" he said. "Oh," Graham said. "Oh, yes, I do." The man next to me, staring open-mouthed at Old Faithful. "Lordy," he said. "Lordy, that's amazing." Gradually, Old Faithful slowed back down. We watched it undo itself and retreat back into its hole. We stood there even after everyone else had drifted away. At last, Graham sighed and said, "Okay, let's go."